I caught my husband and my son's fiancée together. I couldn't believe who she turned out to be by Diana Montgomery. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering against the Italian marble floor of my Bel Air mansion. But I barely heard the crash. All I could see was my husband Marcus's hand on her waist. All I could hear was her laughter, that same musical laugh my son Elijah had gushed about for months, and all I could feel was my 51 years of carefully constructed life crumbling around me like that crystal glass. Let me back up. My name is Diana Montgomery, and 3 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I'd built Montgomery Financial Group from the ground up, turning a small investment firm into a billion-dollar empire. Forbes called me the Queen of Wall Street. Black Enterprise featured me on their cover. I had the penthouse office, the vacation homes, the luxury cars. I had Marcus, my husband of 28 years, silver-haired and distinguished, who'd supported my climb to the top. And I had Elijah, my brilliant son, about to graduate from Harvard Law, newly engaged to a woman he described as absolutely perfect. I should have known perfection was a lie, but I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how I got here. Standing in my own home, watching my entire world implode, discovering that the pretty young blonde my son was about to marry wasn't just sleeping with my husband. She was something far, far worse. 3 months earlier, Mom, I need you to meet her. Elijah's voice crackled through my car's Bluetooth as I navigated Los Angeles traffic in my midnight blue Bentley. I just closed a $200 million deal and was riding high on that particular brand of exhaustion that comes with victory. Meet who, baby? I asked, though I already knew. He'd been talking about this girl for weeks. Amber, my girlfriend. Mom, she's the one. I smiled despite myself. My son, my beautiful boy, in love. At 25, he was young, but then again, I'd been young when I met Marcus. 23, fresh out of business school, ready to conquer the world. Marcus had been 35, already established, already successful. He'd taught me so much. Of course, I said. Bring her to dinner on Saturday. Your father and I would love to meet her. Actually, I was thinking just you. Maybe lunch? Father's been so busy lately, and I want you to really get to know her. Woman to woman, you know? Something flickered in my chest. When had Marcus been too busy? I'd been the one traveling constantly, closing deals, building the empire. Marcus had semi-retired 5 years ago, spending his days golfing and managing our charitable foundation. He had nothing but time. Sure, sweetheart, I said, pushing the thought away. Saturday lunch? Le Bernardin? Perfect. Mom? Thank you. This really matters to me. After we hung up, I sat in traffic and let myself feel something I rarely allowed. Maternal warmth. My relationship with Elijah had always been complicated by my career. I'd missed soccer games, school plays, parent-teacher conferences. I'd been building something bigger than myself, creating generational wealth, proving that a black woman from Southside Chicago could sit at the table with old money and come out on top. But I'd also missed moments. And here was my son, wanting to share something important with me. I wouldn't miss this. Saturday arrived wrapped in that perfect California sunshine that makes you believe in second chances. I wore a cream Chanel suit, professional but warm, successful but approachable. I wanted to make a good impression on this girl who'd captured my son's heart. Le Bernardin was quiet, elegant, the kind of place where deals are made and dynasties are discussed over perfectly seared scallops. I arrived first, as I always do. Never give anyone else the power position of waiting. Elijah arrived 5 minutes later, and my breath caught. He was so handsome, so much like his father had been at that age, 6'2", with my dark skin and Marcus's sharp features. He wore a navy suit that I'd bought him for his birthday, and he was beaming. Mom. He kissed my cheek, and for a moment, he was 5 again, showing me a crayon drawing he'd made in kindergarten. She's parking. he said, sitting down. "Mom, I need to tell you something before she gets here." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "I'm going to propose tonight. I just wanted you to know first." "Elijah, you're 25. The same age you were when you married Dad." "I was 23. "Close enough. Mom, when you know, you know. Isn't that what you always taught me? Trust your instincts?" I had taught him that. In business, in life, trust your gut. And my gut was screaming something I couldn't quite hear yet. "Have you talked to your father about this?" Something flickered across his face. We haven't been talking much lately. He's been distant, distracted. I thought maybe you knew why?" Before I could answer, she walked in. Amber. Later, I would remember this moment in excruciating detail, the way the sunlight caught her honey blonde hair, the way her blue eyes scanned the room with calculated precision before softening when they landed on Elijah, the way she moved, confident, deliberate, like someone who knew exactly the effect she had on people. She was beautiful, 23, maybe 24. Tall, slender, wearing a simple black dress that probably cost $3,000. Designer but understated, smart. Mrs. Montgomery. Her voice was silk and honey. "It's such an honor to finally meet you." She extended her hand and I took it. Her grip was firm, practiced. "Please, call me Diana," I said, studying her face. Something nagged at me, a whisper of recognition I couldn't place. We sat. We ordered. And Amber proceeded to be absolutely perfect. She asked about my business, displaying just enough knowledge to be impressive without seeming presumptuous. She mentioned a book I'd written 10 years ago about financial strategy for women. She talked about her own career. She was in consulting, which I noted was vague enough to mean anything or nothing. She was charming with the waiter. She ordered modestly. She touched Elijah's hand with genuine seeming affection, and I hated every second of it. Not because she was doing anything wrong, but because everything felt rehearsed, performed. Like watching an actress nail an audition for the role of perfect future daughter-in-law. "So, Amber," I said, setting down my wine glass, "tell me about your family." For the first time, she hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I built a billion-dollar company on reading people's tells. "My family's complicated," she said, her smile tightening. "My mother passed when I was young. My father, we're estranged." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it despite my suspicions. "Do you have siblings?" "No, I'm an only child, like Elijah." She smiled at my son, who looked at her like she'd hung the moon. The lunch continued. They told me how they'd met at a charity gala I'd hosted 6 months ago, one of my own events. Amber had been volunteering, she said. They'd connected over their shared passion for social justice. It all sounded perfect. Too perfect. When lunch ended, Elijah excused himself to take a phone call, leaving Amber and me alone for the first time. "He's going to propose tonight," she said softly, not meeting my eyes. "I wanted you to know that I'll say yes, and I wanted to ask for your blessing." I studied her carefully. "Why does my blessing matter to you?" Now she looked at me, and for just a moment I saw something else beneath the perfect facade, something sharp and calculating. "Because you're the most important person in his life," she said, "and I want us to be family." Family. The word hung between us like a threat. "Then you should know," I said carefully, "that family means everything to me. I protect what's mine." Her smile didn't waver. I would expect nothing less. Elijah returned, and we said our goodbyes. I watched them walk away hand in hand, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just been played in a game I didn't yet understand. That night, I sat in my home office, supposedly reviewing contracts, but really just staring at my computer screen. The house was quiet. Marcus was at his club, or so he'd said. Elijah was presumably proposing to Amber somewhere romantic and expensive. I pulled up our security company's database. Montgomery Financial Group employed a top-tier firm for background checks on all our executives. I shouldn't use them for personal matters, but something was nagging at me. I typed in Amber's full name, Amber Rose Sinclair. The report came back clean. Too clean. Born in Connecticut, attended private schools, graduated from Northwestern with a degree in communications. Currently working as an independent consultant. No criminal record, no red flags, except there was a gap. 3 years, from ages 18 to 21, where there was nothing. No school records, no employment history, no credit activity, like she'd simply not existed. I leaned back in my leather chair thinking, people don't just disappear for 3 years, not without reason. I was about to dig deeper when my phone rang. Marcus. Diana, are you still up? In the office. Where are you? Just leaving the club. Elijah called. He proposed. She said yes. There was something in his voice, a tightness I couldn't identify. I heard, I said. I met her at lunch today. Silence on the other end. Too long. Marcus? What did you think of her? It was a simple question, but the way he asked it, careful, measured, set off alarm bells. She seems nice, I said carefully. A bit too perfect, perhaps. Did you know about this? The proposal? Elijah mentioned it. And? Another pause. Diana, can we talk when I get home? Talk about what? Just, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there in the dark, looking out at the city lights spread below my hillside mansion, and felt the first real stirring of fear. Marcus came home 45 minutes later, not 20. I was still in my office, now with a glass of scotch, going through everything I could find on Amber Sinclair. Sorry I'm late, he said from the doorway. Traffic. I looked at him. My husband of 28 years. Silver hair, perfectly styled, wearing the Tom Ford suit I'd bought him for Christmas. Still handsome at 58? Still the man who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd celebrated every business victory, who'd promised to stand by me through everything. You wanted to talk, I said. He crossed to the window, his back to me. About Elijah and Amber. What about them? Diana, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. My heart started pounding. What did you do, Marcus? He turned, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Guilt. I know her, he said quietly. Amber. I know who she is. The room tilted. What do you mean, you know her? Her real name isn't Amber Sinclair. It's Amber Fitzgerald. She's... He stopped, closed his eyes. She's Robert Fitzgerald's daughter. Robert Fitzgerald. The name hit me like a physical blow. Robert Fitzgerald, who'd been my business partner 25 years ago. Robert Fitzgerald, who'd tried to steal my company through fraudulent contracts and forged documents. Robert Fitzgerald, who'd sexually harassed me for 2 years before I finally gathered enough evidence to destroy him. Robert Fitzgerald, who'd gone to prison for 15 years on my testimony. Robert Fitzgerald, who'd sworn he would make me pay. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. Robert had a daughter, but she was a child. She couldn't be... She'd be 23 now, Marcus said. Diana, I saw the resemblance. That's why I've been distant with Elijah. I've been trying to figure out if I was right, and I am. I confronted her 2 weeks ago. You what? I had to know. I met her for coffee. I told her I knew who she was. I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward. And what did she say? She admitted it. Said she changed her name legally when she turned 18. Said she wanted nothing to do with her father's past. She claimed she didn't know who Elijah was when they met, that it was a coincidence. And you believed her? I was shouting now. Marcus, are you insane? This is Robert Fitzgerald's daughter, a man who threatened to destroy me. She seemed genuine. Of course she seemed genuine. She's been playing our son for 6 months. She just got him to propose. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to think. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Like what? Rationally, protectively? Diana, I know you're scared, but think about this. If she wanted revenge, why would she put herself in a position where we could expose her? Why go through with an engagement? It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. I grabbed my phone. I'm calling Elijah right now. Marcus caught my wrist. And telling him what? That the woman he just proposed to is the daughter of your enemy. That you forbid him from marrying her because of something her father did before she was old enough to remember? Yes, exactly that. He'll hate you. You know he will. He'll think you're trying to control his life, just like you tried to control his career choice, his college, everything else. That stung because it was partially true. I had pushed Elijah, pushed him to be the best, to excel, to make something of himself. Maybe I'd pushed too hard. So what do you suggest? I asked coldly. We just let this happen? Let Robert Fitzgerald's daughter marry our son? I suggest we watch carefully. We stay close. We don't give her any reason to suspect we know, and if she makes one wrong move, we act. It went against every instinct I had. But Marcus was right about one thing. If I confronted Elijah now, I'd lose him. Fine, I said, but I'm having her investigated, properly, everything. I expected nothing less. He moved to leave, but I stopped him. Marcus? When you met her for coffee? Where was it? The Beverly Hills Hotel? And she admitted who she was? Just like that? He nodded. What else did you talk about? Nothing. Just that. I told her I knew, she admitted it, and we agreed she'd tell Elijah when the time was right. When the time was right, I repeated. And when might that be? She said after the wedding. I laughed bitterly. Of course, after she's legally bound to our family, after she has access to everything. Diana, get out, Marcus. I need to think. He left, and I sat alone in my office, staring at the photo on my desk. It was from our wedding day, me and Marcus, young and hopeful, believing we could conquer the world together. I'd been so naive. Now I opened my laptop and started making calls. I had investigators, lawyers, people who owed me favors. By morning, I'd know everything there was to know about Amber Rose Fitzgerald Sinclair. And if she thought she could destroy me through my son, she'd severely underestimated Diana Montgomery. The investigation. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in deception on both sides. I smiled through the engagement party I threw for Elijah and Amber. I clinked champagne glasses with friends and business associates who gushed about the beautiful couple. I hugged my son and told him I was happy for him. I even managed to kiss Amber on the cheek and welcome her to the family, all while my investigators dug into every corner of her life. The reports came in pieces, each one more disturbing than the last. Amber Rose Fitzgerald had indeed been 8 years old when her father went to prison. She'd been raised by her maternal grandmother in Connecticut after her mother's death. Clean record, good student, nothing unusual, until she turned 18. That's when she legally changed her name to Sinclair, her grandmother's maiden name. She enrolled in Northwestern, paid for by a trust fund her grandmother had established. She studied communications and psychology. She graduated with honors. And then, those 3 missing years. My investigators finally found the truth. She'd spent those years working for a private intelligence firm, the kind that conducts corporate espionage, opposition research, digging up dirt for clients who can afford to pay premium rates. She'd been good at it. Very good. She'd left that firm 6 months before meeting Elijah. Just walked away from a 6-figure salary with no explanation. 6 months before meeting my son at my charity gala. The timeline was too perfect to be coincidence, but I still didn't have proof. Nothing that definitively showed she was working some kind of long con. Nothing I could take to Elijah without seeming paranoid. I needed more. That's when I made my first mistake. I decided to approach Amber directly. I invited her to lunch under the pretense of discussing wedding plans. She arrived at my office instead of the restaurant. I'd changed the location at the last minute, wanting the home field advantage. My corner office on the 45th floor was designed to intimidate. floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown LA, original artwork worth millions, a desk that had belonged to a Vanderbilt. Every inch of it screamed power. Amber didn't even blink. "Mrs. Montgomery," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk like she owned it. "This is unexpected." "I thought we should talk," I said. "Privately." About who you really are, Amber Fitzgerald." I watched her face carefully. Any other person would have flinched, denied, showed some reaction, but Amber just smiled. "I wondered when you'd figure it out," she said calmly. "I'm actually impressed it took you 3 weeks." Her admission, so casual, so unafraid, threw me off balance. "You're not even going to deny it?" "Why would I? It's the truth. Yes, my father is Robert Fitzgerald. Yes, I changed my name. And yes, I know exactly who you are and what you did to him." "What I did to him?" I stood up, anger flooding through me. "Your father was a criminal. He tried to steal my company. He sexually harassed me for years. Everything he got, he deserved." "That's your version. It's the truth. There was a trial. Evidence. He went to prison. He went to prison because you're rich and connected and he wasn't. He went to prison because you needed someone to blame for your own mistakes." Her voice remained calm, which somehow made it worse. "And he died there. 3 years ago, shivved to the throat in the prison yard. Did you know that?" I hadn't. I sat back down slowly. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it despite everything. "I didn't know he'd died." "No, you wouldn't, because you never thought about him again after you destroyed his life, after you made sure he lost everything, his business, his reputation, his family. He did that to himself. Maybe not, but either way, you're right to be suspicious of me, Mrs. Montgomery. You should be suspicious." My blood ran cold. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm being honest with you. Something I suspect doesn't happen often in your world." She leaned forward. "I love your son. That part is real. I didn't plan it, didn't expect it, but it happened. And yes, before you ask, I did know who he was when I approached him at that gala. I'd been researching you for months." "Why?" "Because I wanted to understand the woman who destroyed my father. I wanted to see if you were the monster he described or something else. And you're neither. You're human, flawed, brilliant, ruthless when you need to be. You built something extraordinary and you did it in a world designed to keep women like you out. I can respect that even if I hate what you did to my father." "This is insane," I said. "You're telling me you researched me, targeted my son, made him fall in love with you. I didn't make him do anything. I simply made myself available and let nature take its course. Your son is lovely, by the way, kind, genuine. Nothing like either of his parents." "Get out of my office." "In a moment. First, you should know something else. Your husband already knows all of this. We've been meeting for the past month. He's been helping me plan something special for you." The world stopped. "What?" "Marcus and I have been working together. He's quite charming when he wants to be. Very understanding, very attentive." She stood up, smoothed her dress, and walked to the door. Then she turned back, and her smile was pure poison. "Oh, and Diana, you should really update your home security system. The cameras in your bedroom have been very revealing." She left, and I sat there in my power office, in my expensive suit with my billion-dollar empire spread out beneath me, and felt completely powerless. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Instead, I checked into a hotel suite and pulled up every security feed from my house. It took me 2 hours to find what she was talking about. The cameras in the master bedroom had been hacked. Someone had been watching Marcus and me for weeks, more than watching, recording. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the footage from 3 days ago. Marcus in our bedroom, but not alone. Amber. I watched, numb with shock, as my husband of 28 years kissed my son's fiancée. Watched them fall onto the bed I shared with him. Watched them. I shut the laptop. Then I threw it across the room. Then I screamed. The confrontation. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made plans. By dawn, I had a strategy. Marcus wanted to betray me? Amber wanted to destroy me? Fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial thing. I didn't build a billion-dollar empire by being weak. I returned home at 7 a.m., walking through the front door like nothing was wrong. Marcus was in the kitchen, reading the newspaper over coffee. "Morning," he said casually. "Where were you?" "Hotel. Needed to think. About whether I should divorce you now or wait until after I destroy you." The newspaper lowered. "Diana, don't. Just don't." I poured myself coffee with steady hands. "I know about Amber. I know about the affair." "It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because I think my husband has been sleeping with our son's fiancée. What part of that did I get wrong?" He set down his coffee cup. "I was trying to protect you." I laughed. It sounded unhinged even to my own ears. Protect me? By sleeping with her? She was blackmailing me, Diana. She had information, old information about some offshore accounts, tax evasion, fraud, things that could destroy both of us. She said if I didn't cooperate, she'd go to the SEC. And cooperation meant sleeping with her? I thought if I got close to her, I could figure out her plan. I could protect you, protect Elijah. Stop lying! I slammed my cup down. Just stop. I don't know what's worse, that you cheated or that you think I'm stupid enough to believe this story. It's the truth. Then prove it. Show me the evidence she supposedly has. He couldn't, of course, because there wasn't any. Marcus had handled our finances carefully, legally. Whatever Amber had on him, it wasn't about money. What does she really have on you, Marcus? What are you so afraid of? His silence was answer enough. I grabbed my purse. I'm going to talk to Elijah. I'm going to tell him everything. You can't. Diana, please. Think about what this will do to him. What it will do to him. What about what you've already done? If you tell him, you'll lose him forever. He'll never forgive you for destroying his happiness. His happiness is built on lies. Maybe, but he doesn't know that. And if you're the one who tells him, you'll be the villain. Not Amber, not me, you. I hated that he was right. So what do you suggest? I asked coldly. We just let them get married? Let her win? No, we wait. We gather actual evidence. We expose her without implicating ourselves. We make her the villain she actually is. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we pretend everything is fine. We play along with whatever game she's running, and we find her weakness. I wanted to refuse, wanted to burn it all down right then and there. But Marcus was right about one thing. Elijah would hate me if I destroyed this without proof. Fine, I said. But this marriage with you, it's over. You'll sleep in the guest wing. You'll keep up appearances in public, but you and I are done. Diana, we're done, Marcus. Now get out of my sight before I do something I'll regret. He left, and I sat alone in my kitchen, in my mansion, in my carefully constructed life, and felt it all crumbling around me. The next 2 months were a special kind of hell. I smiled through wedding planning meetings, discussed flowers and venues and catering with Amber like we were actually family. Watched her play the role of loving fiancée to my son while knowing she'd been in bed with my husband. I wanted to hate Elijah for being so blind, but watching him with her, I understood. She was perfect with him, attentive, loving, everything a man could want. If I didn't know the truth, I'd think she genuinely cared. Marcus and I maintained our public facade. To the outside world, we were still the power couple, still the Montgomery dynasty, but at home, we barely spoke. And every day, I dug deeper. My investigators found her handler, the man who'd recruited her to the intelligence firm. He was reluctant to talk until I offered him enough money to retire comfortably. Then he sang like a bird. Amber was special, he told me over a secure call. Brilliant at reading people, at becoming whatever they needed her to be. We used her for long-term operations, the kind where you need someone to infiltrate a family, a company, a social circle. Did she ever mention my family? I asked. Not by name. But about 8 months ago, she asked for a leave of absence, said she had personal business to handle. When she came back, she quit, just walked away from everything. Did she say why? No, but I got the impression it was about her father. She'd always been angry about what happened to him, obsessed even. Used to spend her free time researching the case, trying to find some way to prove he'd been framed. Was he framed? A pause. I don't deal in truth, Mrs. Montgomery. I deal in what can be proven, and what can be proven is that your testimony put Robert Fitzgerald in prison. After we hung up, I sat with that information for a long time. What if Robert had been telling the truth? What if I'd been so blinded by ambition, so determined to eliminate a threat that I'd destroyed an innocent man? No, I couldn't think like that. I'd had evidence, documents, witnesses. The legal system had worked, hadn't it? The wedding was set for December, a winter wonderland affair at a private estate in Montecito, 300 guests, a $250,000 dress, everything perfect. Amber threw herself into planning with an enthusiasm that seemed genuine. She had dinner with me weekly, discussing details, asking my opinion on everything from the menu to the music. She was respectful, deferential, everything a future daughter-in-law should be. And it drove me crazy, because I couldn't figure out her endgame. If she wanted revenge, why wait? If she wanted money, she could have demanded it by now. If she wanted to destroy my family, there were easier ways. What did Amber Fitzgerald really want? I finally got my answer in November, 3 weeks before the wedding. I was working late in my office when Amber called. Diana, it's me. Can we talk? It's 11 p.m., Amber. I know, but this is important. Can you meet me? There's something I need to show you. Every instinct screamed trap, but I was tired of playing defense. Where? Your office? I'm already in the building. She was waiting when I arrived, sitting in my chair behind my desk. The power play was obvious and intentional. You're getting bold, I said. I'm getting tired of pretending. She gestured to the screen of my computer. I logged into your system. Don't worry, I already had access. I've had access to everything for months. My blood ran cold. What do you want? I want you to see something, evidence I've been gathering, about your testimony against my father. She pulled up a series of documents. Financial records, emails, depositions, all from 25 years ago, all from the trial that sent Robert Fitzgerald to prison. Look at this email, she said, pointing to the screen, from your CFO at the time, Thomas Chen, to Marcus, 3 weeks before the trial. I read it. My hands started shaking. The email detailed a plan to forge documents that would implicate Robert in fraud, a plan that Marcus had approved. This is fake, I said. You fabricated this. I thought you'd say that. So I had it authenticated by 3 independent forensic analysts. It's real, Diana. Marcus framed my father, and you either knew about it or were too focused on your own success to look closely at the evidence. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what you took from me. My father wasn't perfect. But he wasn't the monster you made him out to be. He was a threat to your empire, so you eliminated him, and Marcus helped you do it. If this is true, it is true. Then why haven't you gone public? Why not destroy me with it? She stood up, walked around the desk to face me. Because destroying you would hurt Elijah, and despite what you think, I do love your son. He's the only good thing to come from this entire mess. So what do you want? Money? Revenge? What? I want you to confess. I want you to admit what you did. I want you to clear my father's name. He's dead. It won't change anything. It will change everything for me. We stood there, 2 women on opposite sides of a war neither of us had wanted. And if I don't, I asked, then on my wedding day in front of everyone you know, I'll release everything. Every email, every forged document, every lie. I'll destroy your reputation, your company, your legacy, and I'll make sure Elijah knows exactly what kind of people his parents really are. He'll hate you too. Maybe, but at least he'll know the truth. She walked to the door, then turned back. You have 3 weeks, Diana. 3 weeks to decide what matters more, your pride or your family. She left, and I stood alone in my office, staring at the evidence of my own complicity. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I reviewed every document, had my own forensic team analyze the emails. Everything Amber had shown me was real. Marcus had orchestrated a frame-up, and I'd been too focused on winning to question the evidence. I'd sent an innocent man to prison, where he died, and his daughter wanted me to pay. The worst part? I understood her. If someone had done this to my family, I'd want revenge too. But confessing would mean losing everything. My reputation, my company, possibly my freedom. Obstruction of justice, perjury. The charges would be severe, and it would break Elijah's heart. I finally confronted Marcus in his study. He was drinking scotch, staring at nothing. She showed me the emails, I said. He didn't even look up. I know. Why? Why did you do it? Because you needed it. You were so close to everything you'd worked for, and Robert was going to take it away. I couldn't let that happen. So you framed him? I removed an obstacle. I protected you. You destroyed him. And I'd do it again. Now he looked at me, and his eyes were cold. You wanted to be on top, Diana. You wanted to win. Well, this is what winning looks like. It's ugly and ruthless, and sometimes innocent people get hurt, but you won. I never asked you to. You didn't have to ask. That's what marriage is. I knew what you needed, and I provided it. Just like I've provided everything else for 28 years while you built your empire. I stared at the man I'd married, the man I'd loved, and realized I'd never really known him at all. What about Amber? I asked. Why did you sleep with her? He laughed bitterly. I didn't, not the way you think. I saw the video, edited. She's good at that, remember? Former intelligence operative. She kissed me once, made sure the camera caught it, then blackmailed me with the footage. Threatened to send it to you, to Elijah, unless I cooperated with her investigation. Cooperated how? By confirming the truth about Robert. By giving her access to the old files. By helping her build her case against you. Against us, I corrected. You're just as guilty. Yes, but she doesn't care about me. This was never about me. It's about you, Diana. It's always been about you. I left him there with his scotch and his justifications. 2 weeks before the wedding, I made my decision on a Tuesday. I called a press conference for Friday. I drafted a statement confessing everything. My role in Robert Fitzgerald's conviction, Marcus's fabrication of evidence, all of it. I consulted with criminal attorneys about potential charges and plea deals, and then I called Elijah. Mom, what's wrong? You sound terrible. I need to see you tonight. It's important. Can it wait? Amber and I are finalizing the seating chart. It can't wait. Something in my voice must have convinced him. Okay, I'll come by at 8. I spent the afternoon preparing, not just for the conversation with my son, but for the end of everything I'd built. The SEC investigation that would follow, the board meetings, the shareholders demanding my resignation, the public spectacle. But more than that, I prepared for losing Elijah. He arrived promptly at 8, still in his work clothes, looking concerned. Mom, what's going on? You're scaring me. Sit down, baby, please. He sat, and I sat across from him, and for a moment I just looked at him. My son, my beautiful, brilliant boy, the best thing I'd ever created. I need to tell you some things, I began, about Amber, about your father, about me. If this is about Amber's father, you know? He sighed. She told me last week, said she wanted to be completely honest before the wedding. Yes, her father is Robert Fitzgerald. Yes, she changed her name. And yes, I know what happened between you two. I sat back, stunned. And you're still marrying her? Why wouldn't I? She's not responsible for her father's crimes. You taught me that. Judge people on their own merit, not their history. Elijah, there's more. Things you don't know about what happened with Robert. I know enough. I know he tried to steal your company. I know he sexually harassed you. I know he went to prison. But what if... I stopped, choosing my words carefully. What if the evidence was fabricated? What if your father and I sent an innocent man to prison? The silence that followed was deafening. What are you saying, Mom? I'm saying I may have made a terrible mistake 25 years ago, and now I need to make it right, even if it costs me everything. I pulled out the documents Amber had shown me. I walked Elijah through everything: the forged emails, Marcus's confession, the timeline that proved Robert Fitzgerald had been framed. I watched my son's face as he processed it all. Watched the shock, the disbelief, the slowly dawning horror. "You knew?" he finally asked. "You knew Dad framed him?" "Not at the time. I only found out recently. But I should have known. I should have looked closer at the evidence instead of just accepting it because it gave me what I wanted. And you're just telling me this now? 2 weeks before my wedding?" "I'm telling you now because I'm going to confess publicly. Because I'm going to try to clear Robert's name. And because you deserve to know the truth before you marry his daughter." Elijah stood up, paced to the window. "Does Amber know you're planning this?" "No, she gave me an ultimatum. Confess or she'd expose everything at the wedding. But I'm doing this because it's right, not because she forced me." "This is going to destroy you." "I know. The company, your reputation, everything you've built. I know, Elijah." He turned to face me, and there were tears in his eyes. "Why? Why would you do this?" "Because I realized something. I built an empire, but in the process, I destroyed lives. Robert Fitzgerald's life, his daughter's childhood, my marriage. And if I don't make this right, I'll lose the only thing that truly matters, you." "You're not going to lose me, Mom. Aren't I? You're in love with a woman whose father I helped destroy, a woman who's been planning revenge against me for months. How can we come back from that?" "I don't know," he said honestly, "but we'll figure it out, because despite everything, you're still my mother, and I still love you." I started crying then. For the first time in years, I let myself break down in front of my son. He held me while I sobbed, this boy I'd raised to be strong and successful, comforting me in my moment of complete failure. "What are you going to do?" he asked when I finally calmed down. "I'm going to call a press conference, confess everything, face whatever consequences come. And then I'm going to talk to Amber. She's going to be angry that you're stealing her thunder." "Probably. But this isn't about her anymore. It's about doing what's right." The press conference was scheduled for 3 p.m. Friday at Montgomery Financial Group headquarters. I'd notified the board, my attorneys, and select media outlets. I was ready to face the music. But at 2 p.m., Amber showed up at my office. "I heard about the press conference," she said, walking in without knocking. "News travels fast. I have Google alerts on your name. Occupational hazard." She sat down, studying me. "You're really going to do it? Confess?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because it's the truth. Because your father deserves better. And because I'm tired of living with lies." She was quiet for a long moment. "You know this won't bring him back." "I know. And it won't change what happened to me. Growing up without a father, watching my mother drink herself to death because she couldn't handle the shame. I know, and I'm sorry. More sorry than you'll ever know." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." "No, but it's a start." She stood up, walked to the window overlooking the city. "I spent 6 months planning this. 6 months researching you, getting close to Elijah, building my case. Do you know what I learned?" "What?" "That revenge is exhausting and ultimately empty. I thought destroying you would make me feel better, would somehow make up for losing my father. But then I fell in love with your son, and everything got complicated. Do you really love him? Or was that part of the plan? She turned to face me. At first, it was the plan. Get close to him, get close to you, get my revenge. But Elijah he's genuine in a way I've never experienced. He sees the best in people. He believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. So yes, I love him, which makes this whole situation a nightmare. What do you want, Amber? I wanted justice. I wanted my father's name cleared. I wanted you to suffer the way I suffered. And now? Now I want my father's name cleared, and I want to marry your son without destroying him in the process. Can we do both? I thought about it. Maybe. If we work together. You want to work together? After everything? I want to make this right. For Robert, for you, for Elijah. And I think you want the same thing. She studied me for a long moment. What are you proposing? I confess to the press. I clear your father's name. I face the legal consequences, but we control the narrative together. We make it about justice, not revenge. We protect Elijah from the worst of it. And in exchange? In exchange, you tell me the whole truth. Everything you found, everything you planned, everything you did. No more secrets. Why does that matter now? Because if you're going to be my daughter-in-law, I need to know who you really are, not the perfect girl you pretended to be, the real you. She sat back down. The real me is not someone you're going to like. Try me. And so she told me. Amber's story started long before our paths crossed. I was 8 when they took my father away, she began. I remember the morning, federal agents banging on our door, my mother screaming, Dad trying to stay calm, telling me everything would be okay. They let him kiss me goodbye before they put the handcuffs on. She paused, and I saw the little girl she'd been, watching her world collapse. After that, everything fell apart. Mom couldn't handle it. The shame, the judgment, the financial problems. She started drinking. By the time I was 12, I was taking care of her instead of the other way around. Where was your grandmother? In Connecticut, trying to help from a distance. But she was old, and Mom refused to leave California, refused to admit she needed help. She died when I was 15, liver failure, and suddenly I was alone with my grandmother. I'm sorry. Are you? Because your testimony is what started all of this. Your lies put my father in prison, which destroyed my mother, which ruined my childhood. The words stung because they were true. Graham was good to me, Amber continued. She gave me stability, paid for school, tried to help me move past what happened. But I couldn't. I was angry, so angry, and I wanted to understand why someone would destroy my family. So you researched me. Obsessively. I read every article, every interview, every piece of information I could find about Diana Montgomery. And you know what I discovered? That you were brilliant and ruthless and exactly the kind of person who would do whatever it took to win. That's what you learned about me? That's what I learned to become. If I wanted to take you down, I had to think like you, be like you. So I studied corporate espionage. I learned how to manipulate people, how to become what they needed, how to destroy them from the inside out. And you joined the intelligence firm. Best training ground there is. I spent 3 years learning every dirty trick in the book, and then I decided it was time to come after you. Why wait so long? I needed a way in. Your security is too tight, your public image too carefully managed. I couldn't just waltz up and destroy you. I needed access to your inner circle. And then I found out about Elijah. My stomach turned. You targeted my son. Of course I did. He was perfect, young, idealistic, looking for meaning in his life, and lonely even if he didn't admit it. His parents were always working, always busy with more important things. He was desperate for someone to really see him. So you made yourself that person. I researched him for months, found out his interests, his values. his vulnerabilities. I made sure I'd be at that charity gala. I made sure we'd be volunteering together. I became exactly what he was looking for. That's sociopathic. That's strategy. And it worked. He fell for me hard and fast. Within 3 months, he was talking about marriage. And Marcus? How did he factor in? I knew I needed leverage against you, something that would force you to cooperate or destroy you completely. So I dug into Marcus's background, found the discrepancies in the trial records, confronted him with what I'd found. And he confessed, eventually. But first, he tried to buy me off. When that didn't work, he tried to seduce me. That's when I set up the cameras, got the footage I needed. The footage was real? The kiss was real. Marcus initiated it, trying to manipulate me the way he probably manipulates everyone. But I cut it off before it went further, edited the footage to make it look worse than it was, and used it to blackmail him into cooperating. I didn't know whether to be relieved or horrified. And the plan was to expose everything at the wedding. Maximum impact, maximum humiliation. All your friends, family, business associates watching as I revealed what you really are. It would have destroyed you completely. So what changed? She was quiet for a moment. Elijah changed. He's not like you or Marcus. He actually cares about people, about making the world better, about me. And the more time I spent with him, the harder it became to think of him as just a tool for revenge. You fell in love with him for real. I didn't want to. It wasn't part of the plan. But yes, somewhere along the way, it stopped being an act. And that's when I realized I couldn't go through with the original plan. I couldn't destroy him like that. But you still wanted justice for your father. I still wanted the truth. So I gave you the ultimatum. Confess or I'd expose you. I thought you'd choose your empire over your integrity. I thought I knew exactly how you'd react. But I'm confessing anyway. You're confessing anyway, she repeated. Why? Because Elijah made me see something I'd forgotten. That legacy isn't about money or power. It's about the kind of person you choose to be. And I don't want to be someone who destroys innocent people to get ahead. My father wasn't entirely innocent. He did sexually harass you, didn't he? I nodded. Yes, that part was true. He made my life hell for 2 years. But he didn't deserve to be framed for fraud. He didn't deserve 15 years in prison, and he certainly didn't deserve to die there. Amber's eyes filled with tears. I never got to say goodbye. They wouldn't let me visit the last few months, said he was in solitary for his own protection. And then one day, I got a call saying he was dead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We sat there in my office, 2 women on opposite sides of a tragedy we'd both played a part in creating. So what now? Amber asked. Now we face it together. We tell the truth. We let the chips fall where they may. And we try to build something better from the wreckage. You realize this could send you to prison. I know. And you're still going to do it? Yes. She studied me for a long moment. You're not at all what I expected, Diana Montgomery. Neither are you, Amber Fitzgerald. The press conference was brutal. I stood at a podium in front of 50 journalists and cameras from every major news outlet. Behind me were my attorneys, looking grim. Beside me was Amber, standing in solidarity. I confessed everything. The forged documents, Marcus's involvement, my failure to verify the evidence, my complicity in sending an innocent man to prison. The questions came fast and furious. How could I not have known? Why come forward now? What about Marcus? What about Montgomery Financial Group? I answered them all honestly. I didn't try to minimize my guilt or shift blame. I owned it completely. And then Amber stepped forward. I'm Robert Fitzgerald's daughter, she said into the microphone, and I forgive Diana Montgomery. The room went silent. My father wasn't a perfect man, Amber continued. He made mistakes, but he didn't deserve what happened to him. And for years, I blamed Diana for destroying my family. I planned revenge. I plotted her downfall. But what I learned is that revenge doesn't heal anything. It just creates more pain. "So you're not pressing charges?" someone asked. "That's up to the authorities. But personally? No. I want my father's name cleared. I want the truth acknowledged. But I don't want more lives destroyed. We need to break the cycle sometime." After the press conference, my attorneys huddled with federal prosecutors. The initial assessment was grim. I could face charges for perjury, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit fraud. I could lose my company, my freedom, everything. But something unexpected happened. The public response was complicated. Yes, there was outrage, calls for prosecution, demands for my resignation. But there was also something else. Respect, perhaps, for owning my mistakes. Understanding of how the past could be messy and complicated. And there was Amber, doing interview after interview, talking about forgiveness and moving forward. Her beauty and articulateness made her a media darling. She became the face of the story, not as my victim, but as someone choosing grace over vengeance. It was brilliant strategy, and I realized she was still protecting me, even after everything. The wedding happened on schedule, though significantly scaled down. Half the original guest list canceled. The venue changed from a grand estate to my backyard. Still beautiful, but more intimate. The $250,000 dress became something simpler, more meaningful, and I walked Elijah down the aisle because despite everything, I was still his mother. Amber looked beautiful in a simple white gown, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders. When I handed her Elijah's hand, she whispered, "Thank you." For what? For choosing to be better. The ceremony was small but genuine. No pretense, no performance. Just two people who actually loved each other, choosing to build a life together despite everything working against them. Marcus wasn't there. He'd filed for divorce 3 days after the press conference and moved to our place in the Caymans. I hadn't fought it. We were done, had been done for a long time. We'd just been too proud to admit it. At the reception, Elijah pulled me aside. "I know this wasn't the wedding we planned," he said. "It's better," I replied honestly. "It's real." "Are you scared about the legal stuff?" Terrified, but also relieved. I've been carrying this weight for 25 years without even realizing it. Now it's out in the open. "What will you do if you have to go to prison?" "Serve my time, pay my debt, and when I get out, rebuild from scratch if I have to." "You won't have to rebuild alone. I'll help you." I hugged my son, this amazing man I'd somehow raised right despite all my mistakes. "I love you," I told him. "I know I didn't always show it the right way, but I've always loved you." "I know, Mom. I love you too." 6 months later, the federal prosecutors offered me a deal, 18 months in a minimum security facility, plus a substantial fine and agreement to cooperate fully in clearing Robert Fitzgerald's name posthumously. In exchange, they wouldn't pursue more serious charges that could have meant 5 to 10 years. My attorneys advised me to take it. So did Elijah. So did Amber. I accepted. Montgomery Financial Group's board forced my resignation, but I'd expected that. What I hadn't expected was that they'd offer me a consulting position when I got out. "Your expertise is still valuable," the new CEO told me, "and everyone deserves a second chance." I sold the mansion. Too many bad memories, too much wasted space. I bought a smaller place in Pasadena near Elijah and Amber, something I could actually call a home instead of just a showcase. Amber and I met for coffee once a week during those 6 months before I surrendered. Strange as it was, we'd become something like friends. Or maybe not friends exactly, but two people who understood each other in a way few others could. "I found something," she told me at our last meeting before I went in. "Something I thought you should see." She handed me a letter. Old, yellowed with age, addressed to Robert Fitzgerald. I found it in my grandmother's things after she died, but I wasn't ready to read it until now. I opened it carefully. It was from Robert, written from prison about 5 years into his sentence. "Dear Amber, your grandmother tells me you don't want to hear from me, and I understand. I failed you in every way a father can fail his daughter. But there are some things I need you to know. Diana Montgomery did not lie about everything. I did sexually harass her. I made her workplace a living hell because I was threatened by her brilliance, her ambition, her refusal to back down. I thought I could intimidate her into giving up, into going away. I was wrong. The fraud charges are more complicated. Some of the documents they found were real. I did try to divert funds to undermine her company. I was desperate and stupid and convinced I was entitled to success I hadn't earned. But some of the evidence was fabricated. I know it was because I never created those particular contracts, never sent those emails. Someone set me up, probably Marcus Montgomery. But here's the thing. I deserve to be here anyway. Maybe not for exactly what they convicted me of, but for my actions, my choices, the harm I caused. I'm writing this because I don't want you to spend your life seeking revenge on my behalf. Diana Montgomery is not the villain in this story. Neither am I, exactly. We're both just people who made terrible choices. Don't let my mistakes define your future. I love you, baby girl. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you grow up. But please, please don't let anger consume you the way it consumed me. Love always, Dad. I read it twice, tears streaming down my face. When did he write this? I asked. About 10 years ago. He never sent it because my grandmother told him I wasn't ready, and then he died and I never got to hear it. He was right, you know, about both of us. I know, that's why I wanted you to see it, because I think we both need to forgive ourselves as much as we need to forgive each other. I don't know if I can. You will, in time, just like I will. Prison was exactly as terrible as everyone says, and also not as bad as I'd feared. I kept my head down, followed the rules, and found unexpected moments of grace. I taught financial literacy classes to other inmates. I wrote a memoir, not the self-aggrandizing kind, but an honest accounting of my mistakes and what I'd learned. Elijah and Amber visited every week. They told me about their lives, their plans. They were buying a house, talking about starting a family. "You're going to be a grandmother," Amber told me 6 months into my sentence. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. "I'm going to miss so much," I said. "You'll be out before the baby's first birthday," Elijah reminded me, "and we'll need all the help we can get." When I got out 18 months later, I was met by a crowd. Elijah and Amber holding a baby girl they'd named Diana Rose, my former executive team, offering support and job opportunities, and reporters, because I was still news. But I was different now. Humbler, more aware of how fragile success really is, more grateful for what mattered. The baby looked at me with wide eyes, and I saw the future in her face, a chance to be better, to teach her what I'd learned the hard way. "She has your eyes," Amber said. "God help her," I replied. But I took my granddaughter in my arms and made her a silent promise. I would tell her the truth about who I'd been, about the mistakes I'd made and the prices I'd paid, and I would teach her that success means nothing if you lose your humanity in pursuit of it. 5 years later, I'm 56 now, and my life looks nothing like I imagined it would. I run a small consulting firm helping women and minority entrepreneurs access capital and build sustainable businesses. It's not glamorous, and I make a fraction of what I used to, but it's meaningful. I live in that house in Pasadena, 10 minutes from Elijah and Amber and their 2 daughters. I babysit on Tuesdays. I go to dance recitals and soccer games. I show up. Amber and I co-wrote a book about our story, about revenge and forgiveness, about the cost of success, about choosing to be better than your worst moments. It became a bestseller, not because people wanted scandal, but because they wanted hope. Marcus is still in the Caymans as far as I know. We don't speak. Elijah sees him occasionally, but their relationship never recovered. Some betrayals run too deep. Robert Fitzgerald's name was officially cleared 2 years ago. There's now a scholarship fund in his name for children of incarcerated parents. Amber runs it, turning her father's tragedy into something that helps others. And me? I'm learning to be content with enough instead of always chasing more. Last Tuesday, I was at Elijah's house for dinner. Amber was cooking. She's an amazing cook, something I never learned to be. Diana Rose, now 5, was showing me a drawing she'd made. "It's our family," she explained. "That's Mommy, that's Daddy, that's baby Sophie, and that's you, Grandma Diana." I looked at the stick figure she'd drawn of me. It was smiling. "It's beautiful," I told her. "You look happy," she said. "I am happy." And I realized it was true. Not the shallow happiness of success and achievement, but something deeper. Contentment. Peace. The knowledge that I'd face the worst parts of myself and come out the other side. After dinner, Amber and I cleaned up while Elijah put the girls to bed. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Confessing? Giving up everything?" "Never." "Do you regret not going through with your original revenge plan?" "Not for a second." She smiled. "Though I have to admit, some days I miss being angry. It was simpler than this." "Then what?" "Than being family. Than caring about you despite everything. Than having to admit that life is complicated and people are complicated, and sometimes the villain of your story becomes the grandmother of your children." I could say the same about the woman who tried to destroy me becoming the daughter-in-law I never knew I needed. We looked at each other and laughed. After everything, the lies, the betrayal, the revenge plots, the prison time, we'd somehow ended up here. Not enemies, not quite friends, but something more complicated and precious. Family. "I've been thinking," Amber said, "about teaching Diana Rose about her other grandfather, about Robert. I want her to know the full story. The good and the bad, all of it. The man he was, the mistakes he made, the injustice he suffered, and what her grandmother did too. No more secrets. She'll have questions. Good. Let her ask them. Let her learn that people are complex, that forgiveness is possible, that you can choose to be better than your worst moments." Later, driving home through Pasadena streets, I thought about that little girl and the story she'd inherit. Not a simple story of heroes and villains, but a complicated one about people who made terrible choices and then chose to make better ones. I thought about Robert Fitzgerald, dying in prison for crimes he didn't commit and crimes he did. About Marcus, exiled to paradise but alone with his conscience. About Amber, who chose love over revenge. About Elijah, who somehow turned out better than both his parents. And about myself. Diana Montgomery, who built an empire and watched it crumble. Who sent an innocent man to prison and then went there herself. Who lost almost everything and found something more valuable in the wreckage. I pulled into my driveway, into my modest house with its small garden and its ordinary neighborhood, so different from the Bel Air mansion I'd once owned. But there were lights on inside, because Elijah had a key and had promised to stop by with fresh bread from the bakery the girls loved. There was a message on my phone from Amber asking for advice about a business decision. There was a drawing from Diana Rose stuck to my refrigerator. I had enough, more than enough, and for the first time in my 56 years, I understood what wealth really meant. Not money or power or success, but people who showed up, who forgave, who chose you again and again despite knowing exactly who you were. I thought about that champagne glass shattering on my marble floor all those years ago, that moment when I caught Marcus and Amber together and thought my world was ending. It had been ending, but not in the way I'd thought. The old world built on lies and ambition and the ruthless pursuit of success at any cost had shattered. And in its place, slowly and painfully, something better had grown. A world where I knew my granddaughter's favorite colors, where I showed up to dance recitals, where I helped women build businesses without crushing anyone in the process, where I'd looked my worst mistakes in the face and chosen to be accountable for them. That champagne glass had to shatter. So did my old life. So did my illusions about who I was and what mattered. Sometimes things need to break completely before they can be rebuilt into something true. I walked into my small house, into my small life, and felt nothing but gratitude. This was enough. This was everything. Epilogue. 10 years after the press conference, Amber and I were invited to speak at a conference on restorative justice. We stood on stage together in front of hundreds of people and told our story, the whole truth of it. The revenge plot, the confession, the prison time, the forgiveness, the family we'd built from the wreckage. During the Q&A, someone asked Amber, "Do you really forgive her after everything she did to your father?" Amber looked at me, then back at the audience. Forgiveness isn't a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. Some days it's easy, some days it's hard, but yes, I forgive her. Because the alternative is letting anger consume the rest of my life, and I won't give it that power. Someone else asked me, "Do you think you deserved forgiveness?" "No," I said honestly. "I don't think anyone deserves forgiveness. It's a gift, freely given. The question isn't whether I deserved it. It's what I do with it now that I have it." After the conference, Amber and I went to dinner. We'd done this enough times now that it felt natural, normal even. "Diana Rose wants to be a lawyer," Amber told me, "like her father." "God help us all," I said, and we both laughed. She asked me yesterday why I took Daddy's last name instead of keeping Fitzgerald. What did you tell her? The truth, that I was running from my father's legacy when I changed it, and that I took Montgomery because I was choosing a new family, a new story. Do you regret it? Taking our name? No, it reminds me every day that families aren't just given. They're chosen, built, forgiven into existence. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "You know what's funny?" Amber said. "If you'd asked me 10 years ago where I thought I'd be now, I would have said celebrating your destruction. Living my best life while you rotted in prison or obscurity. And instead, I'm having dinner with you, sharing stories about our grandchildren, grateful for lessons I learned the hard way. Life is strange like that." "Life is grace like that," she corrected. "The chance to be more than your worst moment, to build something better from the ruins." I raised my glass. "To ruins, then, and to what grows from them." She clinked her glass against mine. "To ruins, and to second chances." We drank. Two women who should have been enemies, bound together by shared trauma and chosen family and the stubborn belief that people can change. Outside the restaurant, the Los Angeles night was clear and bright with possibility. I caught my reflection in the window, 61 years old, gray showing in my hair, lines earned through suffering and joy etched into my face. I looked like myself finally. Not the polished, perfect version I'd presented to the world for decades, but the real me, scars and all. And I looked happy. Because I'd learned what I should have known all along. You can't build a life on lies. You can't find peace through revenge. You can't love conditionally and expect to be loved in return. The only way forward is truth, accountability, grace given and received, the willingness to let the old world shatter so something better can grow. I walked to my car, a sensible sedan now, nothing flashy, and drove home through familiar streets. Tomorrow, I'd babysit Diana Rose and Sophie while their parents had date night. Next week, I'd meet with a young entrepreneur who needed guidance. Next month, I'd visit the women's prison where I'd been incarcerated to talk to current inmates about financial literacy and second chances. My calendar was full of small, meaningful moments instead of power meetings and billion-dollar deals, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. When I got home, there was a package on my doorstep. Inside was a photo frame and a note from Amber. "Thought you might want this," the note read. The frame held a photograph from the wedding, but not one I'd seen before. It showed me Elijah and Amber, all three of us laughing at something. I couldn't remember what had been funny, but I remembered the moment. It was right after the ceremony when the weight of everything had briefly lifted and we'd simply been three people choosing joy despite everything. But that wasn't what made me cry. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was a reflection in a window, another figure watching from a distance. It took me a moment to recognize him, Marcus, who I'd thought had stayed away completely. He'd been there after all, on the periphery, unable to fully participate, but unable to stay away completely. I set the frame on my mantel, next to pictures of my granddaughters, and looked at it for a long time. Life isn't neat. People don't fit into simple categories of good and evil. Families are messy, forgiveness is complicated, and sometimes the person who betrayed you most deeply is also the one who gave you the greatest gift. Marcus had framed an innocent man, destroyed our marriage, and broken my trust in ways that could never be fully repaired. But he'd also given me Elijah, and through Elijah, I'd found Amber. And through both of them, I'd found redemption. I picked up my phone and did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I texted Marcus, "Thank you for coming to the wedding. It would have meant a lot to Elijah if he'd known." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a response. "How did you know?" "Amber sent me a photo. You were in the reflection." A long pause. Then, "I'm sorry, Diana, for all of it." "I know. Me too." That was all. We didn't need more. Some apologies can't be fully voiced. Some wounds can't be fully healed. But they can be acknowledged, witnessed, released. I put my phone down and looked around my small living room. At the photos on the walls, Elijah's graduation, the girls' birthdays, Amber's book launch, moments of real life lived authentically. At the modest furniture I'd chosen myself, not hired a decorator to select. At the books I actually read instead of just displayed. This was my empire now, not billions of dollars or power or influence, but love, freely given and miraculously received, mistakes owned and forgiven, a family cobbled together from the most unlikely pieces. Robert Fitzgerald's daughter and Diana Montgomery bound together by tragedy and choice, building something neither of us could have imagined. I walked to my bedroom, tired in the best way. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to choose grace over revenge, truth over comfort, love over pride. But tonight, I would sleep peacefully in my small house, knowing that I'd finally learned what my mother tried to teach me before she died, that success without integrity is just gilded failure, and that the only wealth that truly matters is measured in the people who choose to love you even after they've seen you at your worst. The champagne glass that shattered all those years ago had been the beginning of my real education, and I was finally getting it right.